Chapter 4. These new first years are nothing but troublemakers. There were dozens of first and second year students gathered in the gym. Most of the people there weren't second years, but first years. I suppose that many students saw this meet and greet as an important opportunity. Since I didn't know who the first years were at a glance right now anyway, I decided to start by finding out which second year students were participating in this event. The leader of Class A, Sakayanagiarisu, was nowhere to be seen. And while I didn't know if I could exactly call him a stand-in for her, I did see Hashimoto Masayoshi. Sakayanagiarisu had a disability affecting her legs, so her range of movement was limited, making her slow. Hashimoto played an important part in covering her to make up for that. As far as I could tell, he was the only person from Class A here. Furthermore, it didn't seem like he was making an attempt to talk to anyone in particular. He was probably scouting around to see who got in touch with whom at this meet and greet. As the organizer for this event, about half of the people from Class B were in attendance, both guys and girls, ichinose included. Kenzaki was there too, by Ichinose's side, supporting her. However, I didn't get the impression that the students in attendance from Class B were those that were either very good students or those who were concerned about their academic prowess. It seemed Class B had simply chosen to send the more sociable members of their class. On the other hand, after briefly looking around, I saw no sign of anyone from Class C around. It was almost as if they considered this meet and greet to be totally optional, right from the very beginning. Through this one event alone, you could somehow see the motives of each of the second-year classes. However, it wasn't the second-year students who were important to Horikita today. She was focused on the first years, the people we hardly knew at all. I was sure that the first-year students, who had only just started here, had no clue as to what was going on yet. Many of them were probably struggling to wrap their heads around the situation with second-year students suddenly asking to pair up with them. They shrank back from everyone else at the event, clinging to their classmates, which is to say, the students that they were already close with. Upon seeing that, Ichinose tried her best to expand their circle by making self-introductions and casual chit-chat, without really mentioning the special exam. Of course, it wasn't like people were about to immediately open up or anything. Knowing this, she didn't rush things, but instead approached people slowly, looking at them with a gentle smile on her face. Then their hardened hearts, which seemed to have been frozen like ice, began to thaw. After only a few minutes of observation at this meet and greet, I had a general idea of how things were going to go from here. Rather than prioritizing the special exam, she's going about building relationships based on mutual trust first. That is certainly a very Ichinose-san-like way of doing things. An admirable tactic, and one not everyone can pull off, said Horikita, giving her first impression of the meet and greet. It was unknown just how much Class B was going to make use of this strategy, but it was especially important nonetheless. What Ichinose was doing could only benefit both the first and second year students. Horikita called Ichinose admirable for putting such a plan into action. Looking at Horikita's side profile, I could guess at the strategy she must have been thinking of herself. Are you thinking of a similar strategy yourself? I asked. Yes. A strategy based on using private points is too much for Class D to handle. That's why I thought it would be important for us to build relationships based on trust with the first years. However, we're no match for Ichinose-san in that regard at all. Or rather, I should say, that kind of strategy is her specialty, said Horikita. If you wanted someone to accept you as their partner, you needed to offer them something. That something could be a lot of different things, like points, trust, friendship, or a debt of gratitude. Ichinose Honami-san from Class 2B is already quite well known among many of the first years. They know her name and face. I'm sure anxious students will flock to her, and she'll live up to their expectations, added Horikita. Yeah, I think so too, I replied. They weren't going to bother coming up to us, Class 2D, people they didn't know at all. But even if we can't duplicate her admirable methods, there are things we can do, said Horikita. Apparently, Horikita had gotten some kind of idea from this event. The crux of that idea probably had something to do with how she was constantly looking at the first years with the OA app open. She gave no sign of wanting to leave yet, continuing to observe the first years. I wasn't the only one standing beside her, watching either. A large figure moved by us. But, all of them look like total wimps. Every last one of them, gruffed Sudu, standing beside Horikita, sharing what he thought about the first years. Sudu had originally planned to head straight for his club activities right after class today. But because Ichinose's request to hold this meet and greet event was accepted, and it was thus suddenly decided that the gym would be in use until 5 o'clock, he offered to accompany Horikita here. Horikita had flatly turned him down, telling him it wasn't necessary for him to come, but I guess it must have been fine in the end, since he was going to the gym anyway. Don't glare at them for no reason. There's nothing to gain by scaring them, said Horikita. I ain't really glaring or anything. This is just the way my face looks. Anyway, is it really okay for us to hang back and chill like this? Won't the brainy kids get snatched up by Ichinose? What's the harm in just talking to em? Said Sudu impatiently, suggesting to Horikita that they ought to go and talk to the students sooner rather than later. Even if a student from our grade level that wasn't in Class B went to make a move on one of the first years, Ichinose wouldn't get upset about it. If anything, I was sure she'd welcome that happily. What are you gonna do? I asked Horikita, since I'd been wondering about that myself. Do you really think we can outdo Class 2B in a place like this, when it comes to socializing? Asked Horikita. Right now, Ichinose seemed to be emphasizing providing relief for the first years over trying to make sure her own class would win. From the looks of things, not a single one of the students from Class B had left yet, and they seemed to be trying to get to know the first years better, to deepen their friendships. I bet the first years had noticed their enthusiasm too. Yeah, I can't really imagine that we could, I replied. If Yusuke or Kushida were here, we could have stood a chance at schmoozing. Maybe. But Horikita, Sudu, and I most definitely lacked the ability to hold our own socially. I was sure Horikita was well aware of that fact when she came here. Just as the discussion was about to begin in earnest, Horikita took action. Let's go, she said. Instead of participating in the meet and greet, we were retreating. Which meant Horikita had no intention of trying to bring any of the first years over to our side at this event all along. You sure that's okay, Susan? Asked Sudu. More than half of the students who were invited didn't come to this meet and greet. Those are the students I'm going to negotiate with, said Horikita. In other words, she was going to target the first-year students who hadn't bothered to listen to Ichinose's offer. At the same time, however, the fact that those students ignored Ichinose's offer proved it would be difficult to win them over. They might think they could find a partner by themselves, based on their own abilities, without accepting a helping hand. Or perhaps they lacked the courage to come out to this meet and greet. They might even already have a strategy in mind. Whatever the case might be, we could assume many of them probably would be a little eccentric and hard to deal with. For the time being, let's hear your basis for going that route, I said. 2 reasons. As far as I can tell, from what I saw just moments earlier, an unexpectedly high percentage of the students who came to the meet and greet were people concerned about their academic prowess. What we are looking for right now, rather urgently I might add, are students who have at least a B- or better in academic ability. Meaning, the students who have enough confidence to do battle without coming to the meet and greet, said Horikita. I see. If that was the case, I supposed it made a certain amount of sense for us to have left the meet and greet. Our top priority shouldn't be to pair 2 A-rank students with one another. It's about coaxing students with enough academic ability to cover for the weaker students in our class to come to our side, to make sure that absolutely no one gets expelled, said Horikita. However, even if Class 2B did save a lot of the first years, there would naturally be a lot of them left over. Moreover, Ichinose was probably going to prioritize saving the less capable students over helping the highly capable ones. It was possible that we could have picked up some of the leftover students from the meet and greet, ones who were better students to an extent. I assumed her second reason had something to do with that. Besides, there was a little bit of a bias in the students who attended the meet and greet, regardless of academic ability, said Horikita. Bias? The fact that none of the students from Class 1D attended at all, said Horikita. None of them had attended? I see. That certainly was a rather interesting bias. It seems like you understand too, Horikita said. Understand what? What does the fact that none of the kids from Class 1D showed up mean? Asked Sudu, cutting in. He cocked his head to the side, not understanding what the significance of their absence was. There are 40 people in one class. Among those 40 are students with poor grades and students who aren't particularly good at communication. And yet, not a single person from Class 1D participated. The fact that no one had attended is obviously a reflection of the will of the class, said Horikita. It was clear that someone was controlling the entire class and had instructed them not to participate in the meet and greet. You could certainly say that was unusual, considering that it hadn't even been a few days since the semester started. So, you're saying there's already a leader in their class, and that person's kept M from going to this meet and greet? Said Sudo. If there's a person we can negotiate with who speaks for the entire class, then it's no longer necessary for us to try and bargain with people individually, said Horikita. In other words, her strategy was for the students in each of our classes, 1D and 2D, to cover one another. Okay, that's all well and good. But if we do that, we're not gonna stand a chance at winning this thing, are we? Sudo asked. It wasn't a bad idea at all to keep anyone from getting expelled. But it would probably make it impossible for us to beat the other classes in overall scores. You're right. In that sense, I'm not planning to wage war with the other classes this time around, said Horikita. I ain't exactly in a position to really say much of anything about that, but are you sure that's what you want? Said Sudo. Yes. Without a doubt, stated Horikita, clearly and definitively. Although her approach was certainly different, the general idea behind her strategy was similar to Ichinose's from the sound of it. The thinking was that you'd be giving up your chance at a valuable opportunity to get class points, a special exam. Class A's Hashimoto was already leaving the gym, perhaps because he was done snooping around Ichinose's meet and greet event. Horikita followed Hashimoto, proceeding to the gym exit. Sudo and I followed her. But just before I left, I briefly looked back at Ichinose.